Okay, good afternoon. So this video is going to be about how I survive the cold in the Sierras and taking you through my clothing system. And I've had a lot of questions about how I keep my feet warm, so I'll cover that as well. Okay, so I'm wearing my standard clothing, so my replacement hat from the one I lost in a stream. This is just from REI. And then I added the extra vents in the side so that it would breathe a bit more. My top is a merino top. It's actually by Macpac, which is a New Zealand brand, but yeah, definitely once I got into the colder area, I got rid of my shirt and put the merino on, and I wore this regardless of what's happening. Underneath I have a merino bra as well. My old same shorts I've been wearing the whole trip. They're not merino, they're just a nylon blend. And then the gaiters, as soon as I got into the snow, I changed out my little short gaiters and put proper full-length gaiters on. So these are Outdoor Research Verglass gaiters. And the reason that I wear the long gaiters is post holing. When you're going in the snow, if you're constantly dropping down into the snow, then it's going to start grazing your skin and cutting your skin. So it's protection for me while I'm walking. And I'll go into footwear more later, but these are the same shoes I've been wearing from the start. Well, these are a replacement for the shoes, but these are Ultra Lone Peak version 4. So this is the standard setup. When I'm hiking along, if it's starting to get cold, then the very first thing I do is bring out my windproof jacket. So this is my windproof jacket. It is super light. It's made out of the same material as the outer of a sleeping bag. It's one of the things that I've made myself. And yeah, so I've made sure it's got a hood, it's got a zip, and I have put mesh under the arms to keep me cool. So this is step one if I'm getting cold. If it starts to get colder, then I'll do it up. I'll put the hood on, my hat back over top, and this keeps me really warm. The next stage, if I'm starting to get colder from this, is I put something on my hands. For me, my hands are a really good temperature regulator. So what I wear is these Icebreaker Merino liner gloves. They're quite thin, but I find these really warm. They're starting to get a few holes, though I like this hole because I can take my finger off and I can use my phone, and then I just put the finger back on again. But I did Norway with these, and they got a lot of use in Norway. So Norway was 2,000 kilometers, and yeah, I'm at the 1,100 mile mark now. So these have done absolutely fantastic. Okay, so that's the first stage, is windproof jacket, put the gloves on. If I'm still feeling cold, then I put my rain jacket on. This is a Z-Pax Vertis. This is the rain jacket that did the Norway hike. Very lightweight, blocks the wind, and is waterproof. Okay, so that's next. And then if it is raining, then my sun hat comes off and my rain hat goes on. I like to have a brim if it's raining, to keep the rain off, and when the hood comes up, as you can see, it actually gives me a nice peak, and I don't worry about the hood flopping down over my eyes. So it gives me a nice dry environment, and if it's really windy then I can just put my head down, and the rain doesn't go down my chin, which is where most raincoats end up getting wet. And this raincoat's also got the pit zips to keep me cool. And for my hand, these are chemical handling gloves. Other people use just kitchen dishwashing gloves. I use these because it's got a extra layer on top of the latex, which gives really good grip, and it makes the gloves a bit tougher. And I have a loop, so I just added this to the glove so that it stays on my wrist. So when I'm using the gloves, if I need to take them off, so I need to handle something, I don't worry about losing them. They stay there. And my raincoat just goes over the top so that the water flows down. And in this configuration, my hands never were cold, and were never wet as well. These gloves also have a slight liner so that you can actually wear them without the merino underneath. If it's getting cold but it's still wet, it makes them comfortable. What I carried but never actually ended up needing was another layer of insulation, and this is possum down. I figured it might get really cold and I'd need more than just the merino gloves. So I had the possum down ready to go, but it never got cold enough that I actually needed them. And I made sure these were big enough to be able to take the 2 layers underneath. So that's what I did with my hands. 3 layers available, but I only used the 2 layers. The one time it got really cold and I had wind and snow heading towards me, I used a half buff. Okay, and that's what I had. Obviously I'm wearing sunglasses all of the time, and I found that was enough to keep it cool. So I had maybe an hour like this in the whole time. 2 mornings I started with the buff just around my neck, but I got hot really quickly, so they came off quite quickly. And for my head, this was my absolute favourite. This is a possum down merino from New Zealand. I think Z-Pack sell them, but this is from New Zealand. Possums are a pest in New Zealand. They kill the trees and the birds, eat the eggs, kill the young birds. So if you buy one of these, you're doing conservation a good thing in New Zealand. But possum down is hollow fibre. Possums come from Australia, so it's to keep the heat out, but it keeps you really warm, and it doesn't absorb the water. A lot of the water just sheds off. So wool is really warm even when wet, but it absorbs water. This doesn't. Yeah, so I've got the possum down hat, then that can go over top, and then my hood. And I've also got my wind jacket hood and that hood. So I was never in this configuration because it was never cold enough. I did have the possum down hat, this hat and my raincoat, but I didn't need the wind jacket as well. And also every evening when I got to my tent, this is the hat that I put on. My sleeping bag doesn't have a hood on it, and I always use this hat, and it keeps me warm at night. I love this hat. Once again, I never wore it hiking longer than I think maybe an hour, and I just got too hot, so it always came off, and back to that configuration. Yeah, I have one more hat option because my sleeping bag doesn't have a hood. I have a down hood just in case. This is super warm, so if my possum down hat, if I'd worn it during the day and it did manage to get a little wet, then I could put this on in camp at night and for sleeping, but it's never been cold enough. So this is one of the items that I've carried and never used, but will continue to carry. For jackets, I have one more option. This is a synthetic puffy that I made. It's got no fill for the back. It's only got fill on the arms and the front. Once again, I put the mesh under the arm, and it doesn't have a hood because I've got my hat and hoods on my other jackets. This isn't the best sewing. It's I got the neck completely wrong. But 2 mornings I wore this when it was really cold. I put this on and the rain jacket over top, and I had that on for, as I say, about an hour, and then I just had to take this off. It was getting too hot. So that was it. Most mornings it was just my merino and the rain jacket when I was in the snow, and then when it got a little warmer it was just my merino top and my winter jacket, and that was it. So that's upper body. For my lower body, I have been carrying merino long johns. These are icebreaker merino trousers. Never used them. Never been cold enough to put them on. So all I've done is I've had my shorts and rain pants, and these Z-Packs Verti, super light, really thin, and that was it. Shorts and the rain pants, with the gaiters over top of the rain pants. You've seen the videos. I have one more option for trousers. I have wind trousers. Once again, I made these, and these are warm beyond their weight, but I never got cold enough to actually need to wear them. I end up wearing these in town when I'm doing my washing, so I can get my shorts in the wash, and I end up using my wind pants. So just about every night in my tent, as soon as I got to my tent, put my possum down hat on, and I put this down jacket on. This is a Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer. This has been on every through hike that I've done. So it's got a lot of miles on it, but it's still really warm. It's got a couple of little repairs just around the sleeves, but yeah, this is what I have, and then I get inside my sleeping bag, and yeah, that keeps me warm during the evenings. My synthetic jacket just packs down to a little carry sack, super light. Yeah, just as well, because I haven't got much use out of it. My down jacket packs down into its own pocket, into that weight size. My raincoat and rain trousers, they just fit into this little cram bag just to give them a little bit of extra protection. So yeah, that's what they compact down to. Actually compacts smaller when I fold it properly. I just stuff them in at the moment. Okay, so this session is what I've done with my footwear. I've had a lot of questions about how I'm keeping my feet warm. Alright, so my shoes are Ultra Lone Peak version 4. The reason I like them, they have 0 drop, and what that means is the heel is not built up. It's the same height as the forefoot, which is how your feet naturally are. Also got a really wide toe box. I have wide feet. I have quite big feet for my size. I'm a men's 10 US, which is European 44 and UK 9. So it means that my feet can spread out quite a lot, which is good. The one fault is these little toe bits tend to come off after a while. It's also suited for the gaiters. It has a little ring here to put the gaiters on, and for my small dirty girl gaiters, it actually has built-in Velcro to the shoe. So it keeps the gaiters on really nice. It's got a little loop to help me put my feet into the shoe. I don't wear the standard insole. I find it doesn't give me the cushioning, so I'm using the Superfeet insole. It's the one that I found that had the least build up on the arch, because I want to keep my feet as natural as I can. The drainage is really good, and this is one of the key reasons why I wear trail runners and not boots. It means that my feet are going to get wet. I've never met a boot that can stay fully dry in the conditions that I've been in, so I'd rather have a shoe where it can drain out. The shoes that I had, this is a brand new pair I've just received, but the shoes that I had, they were wet continuously since I hit the snow just north of Kennedy Meadows, which is, yeah, they did an amazing job. They were frozen most nights, and the trick is at nights, when you think they're going to be frozen, is you open the laces right up and have the tongue right up as well. So even if they are frozen, you can still get your feet into the shoes when they're frozen. I didn't have a lot of luck. Even when I brought my shoes into my tent in a plastic bag next to my sleeping bag, they still most nights ended up a little bit frozen, so that's how I managed that. The socks, these are darn tough merino hiking socks. They're not thick, they're quite a thin sock. I don't like thick socks. The thinner socks dry quicker. I'm not a big fan of the darn tough. What I found is my feet still felt a little bit wet in them, whereas the icebreaker merino socks, which I've worn in the past, in Norway my feet were wet continuously for 3 to 4 weeks going through swamps and rain, but I found that my feet felt dry even though the socks were wet. These also dried slower than the icebreaker socks, and you can see they're just starting to wear out now, and that's after I picked these up in Bishop, so that's after a month. But they've been wet absolutely continuously ever since, so it's actually not too bad at all. Any morning that was above about 5 degrees, I just put my wet socks back on with the shoes, and that's it. And my feet would warm up pretty quickly. And yeah, and then I just have wet feet all day. Very seldom did I take my shoes off at lunchtime and air them out, because I was just putting wet socks and shoes back on, and I don't like that feeling. So yeah, I just had accepted wet feet. I'm lucky, I've got good circulation, and they didn't feel cold while I was walking. At night I took the socks off, shoes off, and I put my bed socks on. These are the merino socks. So I put these merino socks on, once again not thick, and that way my feet were dry and warm at night in my sleeping bag. If I had managed to dry my socks overnight, or if it was really cold, then I would put a plastic bag over the socks, which gave an extra layer of insulation. What I use, these are kitchen super tough kitchen rubbish sacks, and I found these never wore out. I didn't get holes in them, and they stayed nice and dry. And I put my foot in the corner of it and then just wrapped it over top, put my feet in my shoes, did the shoes up, and then had my gaiters over top. And that bit of plastic, if it was dry socks, that plastic kept the socks dry, and if it was wet socks, it gave a little bit of extra insulation, and I found this brilliant. On the really cold mornings, I have a pair of icebreaker mountaineering socks. I think there were 3 mornings it was really, really cold, so I put these on. And they're a lot taller, and then I had a taller, so that's the kitchen drawstring rubbish bag. And once again, put my foot in the corner and just wrapped it around. Put my foot in the shoe, did them up, and then the gaiter went over top. Okay, and that kept my feet cool warm on the really, really cold days. Generally, I found after about an hour, it'd be way too hot. So I would have these socks hanging on my pack, and they were generally dried when they were sitting on the pack. And by the time I was getting too sweaty in these big thick socks, then I put these socks back on with the plastic bag and I was away. And yeah, that's all I had in the mountains. And it's a horrible foot shot, but here's a foot with absolutely no blisters, no damage, no cold damage. It is possible to look after your feet, but everyone's different. I have good circulation on my feet. So the last thing I am going to cover is these are my crampons. These are the Kahula K10 hiking crampons. They are designed to be worn with trail runners because this part here is flexible. Most crampons, it's absolutely rigid and you wear them with rigid boots, but this one actually flexes, so they are comfortable to walk on. The spikes are an in-between length between a full crampon. So a full crampon is probably come up to there, and a micro spike, which is much smaller than that one. And I also liked these crampons because they're super secure on my feet. That's the number one thing you check with crampons. Are they going to stay on your feet when you're going on steep angled slopes, forwards, backwards, etc. And these ones did stay on my feet. The other advantage of hiking crampons as opposed to climbing crampons is the front points don't stick forward. So you're less likely to catch yourself with the other foot, and also the spikes are straight down. They're not out at a slight angle like a normal crampon, which means that you can walk normally. You can have your feet close together. A normal crampon, you walk with your feet a lot further apart, and you're always worried about catching with the spikes. So the way that I put these crampons in is heel first, and these shoes, I don't know if it's intentional designed to fit the crampons, and there's this little flap at the back of these shoes. So at the back of these shoes there's this little flap here, and what I found is it actually worked really well with a crampon. So obviously I'd be doing this on the ground, not in the air, but I'd always put the heel in first and get the heel in, and you can see how it fits really well with that flap basically holding it up. Then I'd put the inside front. Oop. This is hard to do standing up. I'll do it on the ground. So what I do is I put my heel in first. Once the heel is in, I'll then put the inside forefoot in, and then I put the outside. You actually have to push it down to get it in. Once it's on like that, even without doing any clips on, it's really solid. These aren't going anywhere, which is brilliant. But you do the clips up, and there you go, super solid crampons. And then undoing them was super simple. Just undo the clips, and I grabbed it from the outside of the foot, pushed it down, and then it just comes out like that. So it's putting the crampons on and off. So finished, and once again I am spoiled, and here's my spritzer, and the dinner's on the barbecue. I can smell it. It is fantastic. So just one thing to note with the what I've just gone through with footwear and the clothing system is everyone's different. I tend to stay quite warm. So the foot system that works for me with the trail runners and just having wet feet all the time and my thin socks, it works for me. But other people, their circulation is different, so it may not work for them. You need to do what works for you.